through this. He's been working directly with
Troy,
the.
I'm sorry. Would you let folks know about I forgot to mention how they can put their comments in.
Yep. If you have any comments, you can send them to. Sorry, one second. Dateline at oacsd.org. Once again, it's Dateline at oacsd.org. You will see that on the live version from YouTube, and you can send us questions. There's a little bit of a delay of about 20 to 30 seconds, but then we can answer any questions that you might have. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Farrell to talk about the repair reserve and why we're currently looking to use it.
Okay, so for those unfamiliar with a repair reserve, the district is allowed to have a reserve set aside for any time that there is a repair within the district for all sorts of different things. And years ago, the district had put some money aside into that reserve, and it's been there for well over 10 years now. And we haven't really had an opportunity where it's come up to be used. Unfortunately, we do have that time right now. As we're getting ready to do our capital projects, part of the process requires to do somewhat of an inspection work or engineering work. So architects and engineers and vendors are going into buildings and looking at different things to see what needs to be done. And specifically, we were having some issues with the main drain, the main sewer drain in Appalachian Elementary School. So we had a vendor come in and they take a camera with this long tube or snake, and they go into the actual drain, and they can look inside to see what condition it is actually in. And the drain, the main sewer drain at Appalachian, is not in good condition. It's a very old building. And what they discovered is that on multiple points inside of that pipe, there are it's beginning to crack, and it's beginning, the ground is shifting the pipe, and it's on its way to cracking in half. And when that happens, you no longer have your sewer going out to the street and to the proper place. And that's very, very bad, because you can't really open your building at that point. So we discovered this about 2 months ago, and we've been thinking about how we were going to attack the problem. And our plan was to go after it over spring break and use the time off of school, and because we were nervous that something would happen with this pipe and we would have to shut down school because of it. Well, lo and behold, we're not in school anyways, because we're in a pandemic. So school is closed as it is, and but we still have to repair this pipe. So we are looking to use, or are going to use, the repair reserve to pay for this pipe. It is a perfect opportunity to use the money for that purpose. And we are going to ask the board tonight to pass that resolution, which will ask for the entire amount in the reserve, which is $214,921, to be used for this specific project. You can scroll down, Marcy. So the repair that, like I said, here's the scope of work. They're going to have to remove all the tile in the main hallway. So when you look at Appalachian Elementary School, there's the main hallway when you come in by the cafeteria and the office, and then that building splits into two parts. They are literally going to have to replace the pipe down the main part, down the side corridors, and then all of both hallways up until about halfway down both wings of Appalachian. What they will have to do is remove the tile, and then they'll have to cut through the concrete, take out those concrete slabs, dig down, get the pipe out, put the new pipe in, put the concrete slab back in, and put a brand new VCT floor in. Not a simple project. This is a pretty high level project. So there literally is going to be an excavator in our hallway digging it out. So the estimated cost is $220,000. It should be right about that. And we'll have to use a little bit of money out of either capital or a general fund to pay for the balance of what's not covered with the repair reserve. But a much needed project. Really need to do it for the building to be used from here on out. And this is really the best way to finance that. Does the board have any questions about this?
How deep is it?
I think it's down about 2 feet, maybe. I'm not certain. It's down a ways.
They're not replacing.
You got to
any
stay
walls?
below the frost line and all that. I believe it's 2 feet. Say that again.
Are they taking down any walls or anything?
No.
Okay.
You're literally taking out the tile. They cut the
Uh-huh.
slab down the middle. They dig out the trench. They take the dirt outside, right? And then they take the pipe in, put the new pipe in, put the dirt back in, put the concrete in, put a new floor in. About a month job.
Gotcha.
So we were originally going to get the tile out in spring break and then when the kids were going to leave in June, we were going to do the rest of that project because it was about a month project to do. But with the school closure, we can really get it done now. So, and it makes sense to do that.
How are they going to get the excavator in the hallway, Bob?
You get a little one.
It's a mini.
Believe it or not, it'll fit.
Wow,
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
it is.
So you're going to have guys with wheelbarrows just wheeling this stuff out. Not a simple job.
No,
Wow.
no,
Any
it's
other?
pretty straightforward.
So, and like I said, this is a reserve that's been, has been there for a while, and this is exactly what its purpose is to pay for a repair like this that is really, really needed. You got to have it. So,
Absolutely.
any other questions?
Was this originally in the capital improvement project, or was this something that just kind of came up that we
was
realized, okay,
not.
this is really bad?
It was not in the capital project. It came up as we were going through all of the planning, and what they do is they do kind of like a building condition surveys. Engineers and people come in and look at all of the things inside of your buildings. They look at your roof, they look at your structures, and they look at your plumbing, your electrical. And this one showed up right away, and we immediately had to talk about what we were going to do about it, because you can't just leave it there. It's not one of those, well, we'll kind of see what happens. If that breaks,
Yeah,
you're in serious problems.
Not with that pipe.
No. Mm-mm.
So Kathy, that's a really good question. Because people might say, well, why wouldn't you just include this in the capital project some way? One, obviously we have to get to this and we're still waiting for a final approval on the capital project. But two, when you look at our max cost allowances of aidable items, we're at our max cost allowances already based on the work that we have scheduled to do at Appalachian. So using this reserve allows us to be able to fix this problem without impacting our max cost allowances moving forward in that process. So, other questions came up of, couldn't you declare this an emergency repair? Well, technically we could, but because we're up against our max cost allowances, it wouldn't generate aid for us anyways as an emergency repair. So it would go against us on the future capital work that we're trying to do at Appalachian, which is why we decided to recommend the use of the repair reserve here.
So how does the repair reserve ultimately get refunded at some point? Is it just where does the money come from? A general fund, or does it come from?
Yeah, so we can, at the end of a budget year, we could look to replenish that, in some way, if depending on the year and if there's surplus This has been there quite a while, and because it's so specific for what you can use it for, you know, it just has been kind of sitting there. So we could do that down the road if we felt the need. I think, you know, being in, you know, we're going to be in capital project mode for the next at least 3 years, maybe longer now with this, with the delay from COVID-19. But it would probably be wise down the road to put a little bit in there for sure.
Yeah.
You know, Corey, I think this is the second time we've used this. I know that we haven't touched it in a while, but
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the second time we've gone to the repair reserve, and ironically, that's exactly what it's for, is for emergencies.
Yep.
And
Yep.
even though it's been several years since we've used it, you know how the old,
Yeah.
you know, if we don't have it, we're, you know, darn well something's going to happen where we wish we did. So
Right.
it's something to, yeah, and you don't have to put the money. The beauty of it is you don't have to put it all in at once. You can. and
Yeah,
it's-
I'm just thinking a
That's
little
right.
bit, you know,
Yeah.
well, obviously after we get past the next couple of years of the
Right.
budgets we're gonna be facing, but I mean, I'm talking,
Yep.
you know, even if each year we put in, you know, $10,000 or $20,000.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with the capital improvements, we're trying to get the buildings up to par with as much as we can. So I'm assuming once we're done with the capital improvements, for the most part, the building should be fairly well set.
Right.
But I mean, a building is a building, it's just like a house, anything can go at any point in time.
Exactly.
Correct. That's
Absolutely.
I know
exactly the way to
several
look at
districts
this.
have had to use these for their swimming pools where the pool
Mhm.
cracked or something, and they had to drain
Right.
the pool and fix the crack, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
Bob,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
you said that it was in the main hallways of AES, so how much piping or how much of the, you said it would take about a month?
Yeah.
How much piping are they gonna have to put in?
I don't know the exact footage, but if you can think of Appalachian, think of the doors that are by the dock, you know, the double doors,
Okay,
right? From
Yeah.
there, where the boiler room is in the cafeteria, all the way down that hallway, and then the hallway splits, right?
okay,
So you go
Yep.
down those two hallways, and then you go down the next two hallways where there's the wings, the primary wings and the intermediate wings,
okay,
halfway down those hallways.
okay.
So it's most of the building.
Yes,
Wow.
it is.
Yeah.
It's servicing all of the bathrooms in the building.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You seeing any questions, Corey?
I hold on one second. I do not see any questions at this point.
Because I think it's
So the board, you will,
6:30,
the board
so
will
I
see that
think we'll
on the district business part of the agenda tonight for a resolution to pass.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, there are no comments.
Okay, then. I need a motion to adjourn from the repair reserve hearing.
So moved?
Linda?
Second.
Jason? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I guess we'll move into the regular meeting now.
Okay.
Everyone's- Oops. Alrighty. I need a motion to accept this evening's agenda.
So moved?
Linda?
Second.
Stacy, I believe.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's carried. Okay. Again, with the hearing of the public, we'll use the same mechanism for any comments or questions. There'll be a delay, so we'll probably look at the end of the meeting to see if anybody has had any questions. With that, I'll move to the personnel consent agenda. And I need a motion. I'm sorry, I need a, yeah, I need a motion to accept the personnel consent agenda.
So moved.
Stace? Jason? Any questions regarding the personnel consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's carried. Moving to the remainder of the consent agenda. Treasurer's reports, the budget transfers and the special ed. I need a motion.
So moved.
Kathy,
Second.
Danny, any questions regarding the remainder of the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. Okay, so we'll pass on the president's report and go right to the superintendent. It's all yours, Corey. Did we lose Corey?
I'm here. I muted
Oh, okay.
myself. I apologize. I'm going to go ahead and
That's okay. I thought we lost you somehow. All right, it's all yours.
try to share my screen here.
I can't share my screen.
You can't? Okay, that's what I
No.
was trying to do.
Yeah.
For some
I think
reason.
because I was in the budget hearing, now I can't share this one.
Okay, let me make sure I
Yeah,
can share
public
mine.
hearing.
Make sure there's no. Okay, can you
Yep, I see it.
see it now? Okay. Let me try to put it in slideshow. All right, so this looks fairly familiar. You've seen this version probably, oh, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 or 13 times at this point. But so this is our 2020-21 final proposed budget. Today is May 11th, 2020. And we have the most updated information of budget, and we've been working on this for several months now. I appreciate all the input and insight that we've received from the board and from the community as well in regards to this budget. So tonight, if you have any questions, again, if you go to dateline@oacsd.org, you can go ahead and send your questions to us. There will be a little bit of a delay, but we can get to those questions at the end of the meeting. So again, if you look at our budget at a glance, after we've made all the adjustments to balance this budget, our total revenue has decreased by about 0.09%, and our total expense budget, obviously in line, decreased by 0.09% as well. You see our state aid amounts this year increased by 1.74% overall. Most of those increases were due to transportation and building aid. Our foundation aid was frozen this year. So that number is 1.74%. Our property tax levy this year is our maximum allowable levy is 1.82%. That generates about 17.9 million for the district. And in this budget, based on recommendations from our central business office and looking at what the most recent updates are in terms of, from the state, in terms of the state and the fiscal issues, it made sense not to use reserves or fund balances at this time. So projected revenue, when you look at this year's revenue, there's two primary sources of revenue that we consider primarily here, and that is our tax levy, which is 1.82%. That generates about $319,312 for the school district. And then our other really main source of revenue is state aid, and our state aid is about 23.3 million. 1.74% generates $399,400. You could see we've continued to bring our appropriated fund balance down 100,000. And this year you can see the difference between last year's reserves that were used, and then this year moving forward with no reserves being used. So our total revenue budget actually decreased by about $43,000. So state aid, you can look specifically and see foundation aid actually went down We're down about $9,500. BOCES aid is up a little bit. Our excess cost public high cost aid is up. Those are special ed placements that you will see out there, and those costs that get reimbursed back to the district. Transportation aid is up 110,400, and our building aid is up a little bit as well to give us that total amount of 399,400. So miscellaneous local sources of revenue, you'll see our pilots are up this year by about 219,000. Other things are down, such as interest earnings. With the economy tanking more recently, the interest rates have gone down drastically, and we are projected actually to be down from last year to this year in our interest earnings. Interfund transfer for debt service is down. That really comes down to we are close to the end of closing out all the projects from FEMA from the 2011 flood. So those borrowings have been cut way back, and you'll see that there's a reduction there down to about 71,583. So when we look at our property tax reserves and fund balance for revenues, again, we look at the 1.82%, which generates $319,312. The difference between last year and this year is a negative 2.26. So revenue for 2021, and again, I already discussed that reducing the appropriated fund balance from 1.7 to 1.6. Proposed budget calls for a 1.82% property tax levy increase. No use of reserves. Our foundation aid is lower than last year, which I mentioned. And at this point, state aid is finalized. There is some expectation that we could see some mid-year aid cuts come our way in the 2021 school year. So moving forward, again, we've talked about previously, transportation has had little or no expense over the last few months. We do not know how that's going to impact us yet. We have not received guidance on what that's going to look like specifically. So we may see an issue in some revenue adjustments. As I just mentioned, last year our transportation aid was up. We may have to expect that it could go down a little bit in next year's revenue that comes back to the district. There's still some uncertainty in terms of the federal stimulus money and what that looks like. So potential cuts to foundation aid, which we've talked about before, and I've shared with you based on information that we've been reading and discussing with folks at the state level. We've heard anywhere from 5 to 20% of potential foundation aid cuts. So we analyze those numbers to kind of give you a rough estimate of what that looks like. A 5% is roughly 700,000, 10%, 1.4 million, and a 20% cut would be 2.8 million. So we still don't know on this federal stimulus money. It's projected to have something happen probably somewhere around the end of June. These are charts that we looked at over the last couple of weeks, considerations moving forward and the impact that COVID-19 is going to have, not only just on our state, but on our school district in general, and looking at how that impacts GDP and the comparisons of COVID-19 to the Great Recession to the 9/11 recession. And that has a 14% impact on GDP. So there's obviously some serious concerns with long-term financial issues to come from this crisis. Projections, when you look at this, all came from the Department of Budget. So general fund receipts are projected to decline by $13.3 billion and $61 billion from 2021 to 24. So when you look at those other projections, you can see that it's going to be quite a few years before we're going to come out of this, the impact from this COVID-19. So if you go back and look at our budget during the last recession, which was around 2010 to 2013, and the impact that it had overall to budgets, you can see there when you go the budget percent change, and in year one it stayed okay at 2.09, and then you saw some significant decreases the next 2 years. And that kind of leads to this chart. When you look at that impact and the potential of stimulus money coming, which we've talked about in prior meetings, that stimulus money will come and infuse and level things out for a period of time. But it's when the stimulus money goes away a few years down the road where you start to see the dips again there. So we've got to be cognizant of that moving forward, and planning and preparing for what this this issue could cause. So closing the gap, original budget, it's important to note we started at about a $1.9 million gap. We have a health insurance increase of about $950,000. We did make some adjustments on our retiree health insurance, which saved us $750,000. So we were able to bring that number down significantly with that change. We have some positions through attrition. We have 11 positions. Most recently, we have a couple teaching assistant positions and a secondary level teacher, as well as a custodian who recently retired as well. So we have about 11 total positions from teaching to support staff to administration that have been reduced this year in this budget. We also decreased our workers' compensation costs. We've been doing some research and have decided to go with a different provider, which saved us about $190,000 in cost. We decreased materials and supplies across the entire budget in all areas. And we decreased professional development because we're able to use some title funds to cover that gap in 2021 based on some of the funds that we typically would be able to spend out at the end of the normal school year. We have those funds moving forward so that we could close that gap. So budget communication, how will we from this point forward communicate? It's a little bit different. Obviously now our meetings have become remote through Zoom. We plan to do some budget town halls where we will take questions from everyone in regards to the budget and answer those questions in a budget town hall setting. We'll have our typical budget hearing. We will do staff meetings as well via Google Meets or Zoom, one of those two platforms. We'll continue to try to do as many of our community group meetings that we can, such as Rotary and Kiwanis and Chamber of Commerce and any other community groups that would like a budget presentation. Our budget newsletter will be coming out as planned, and then budget vote information. So as you can see, the budget timeline this year, we proposed in March 2nd. Here we are now at May 11th for board adoption of the budget. And in June 9th will be this year's budget vote. So this year's budget vote will be done all by absentee ballot. So we will be working through that process of mailing absentee ballots to all of those registered voters. And also we will be looking at our past few years of the folks who have voted on the school budget and sharing those with them as well. So questions about the budget. I know we've spent a lot of time over the past couple of months really working through some of the details. We had that gap of about 349,000 that was still sitting there, that we were able to get a few retirements in this last week, which helped us be able to balance that budget. Any questions from the board in terms of the budget in general or the communication of moving forward and the platforms that we plan to use for communication?
So everyone's gonna receive their absentee ballot in the mail, and then they just mail it back, and they just have to mail it back, and it has to be post-dated by the 9th, or it has to be received by the 9th.
Yes, Marcy, do you want to clarify that piece of it? I know that you've been working on some of the details specifically.
Has to be received by the 9th.
Okay, and it has to be done in the mail. Are we using like the drop box out front or no?
We're gonna use the drop box out front also, but US mail, but the postmark does not matter. I have to have it in my hands by 5 p.m. on the 9th.
Okay. Just figured someone's gonna ask about that.
Yep.
Mhm.
Primarily my mother-in-law, so. She already,
Hello.
Okay.
Okay,
So I do have a question that came through. If you want me to answer that question now, Mr. Civic.
sure.
Good.
Corey.
This is in relation, this is from Mike Barata, who said, I saw the discussion on the sewer pipe. Is there any other utilities below those floors that could be replaced at the same time, saving future repairs, water lines, etc.? I don't believe there's any other utilities that are below that line that are in that same trench currently that are in need of replacing. It is just the sewer line itself.
Great question.
Yep.
It was. Okay, then.
In other
If we
words,
don't-
we would not repair it and then go back and tear it up and redo it again. That's
That's an
logical
excellent
question.
point.
Yep.
Right.
Well, if that's it, then Corey, I guess we move on to district business, or do you have, you want to do an update
so
on the
just-
district store?
Yeah, so
Okay.
just quickly, I wanted to, a couple of things that I wanted to just give you a quick update on. And I apologize, I'm trying to work my screen here at the same time, so. I wanted to be able to announce tonight, it's obviously very special for Owego Free Academy and for a couple of our students, to announce our valedictorian salutatorian for 2020. So Owego Free Academy is proud to announce the valedictorian and salutatorian for the class of 2020. Robin Bayer has earned a distinction of valedictorian. Robin will be attending Lemoyne College to study nursing. And Leah Watson is the salutatorian. Leah will be attending the Air Force to study aerospace engineering. So we had an opportunity a couple weeks ago, Mr. Georgia and some of the counselors, we got to be able to do a Zoom call with our valedictorian and salutatorian, which considering the circumstances, it was great. It was awesome to see their excitement and their appreciation. And obviously it's great to hear, the wonderful things that they're planning to go on and do in the future. So congratulations to our valedictorian and salutatorian. This announcement has gone to the media today. So you should see something more coming from that.
Great question. Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
That is great.
So a couple other things, we have a few things going on with our seniors right now. I know that you saw some of the pictures of senior signs that were placed in yards to recognize our seniors, considering the difficult end of year it's been. So we were working with the prom committee on being able to put those together. We do have some other things that we're working on as well. We're trying to kind of keep it a little bit of a surprise here. That should be coming in the next week or so. We have a couple of thought exchanges that are going right now, and that's our survey tool in regards to graduation ideas. And again, we're still waiting on state guidance in terms of what we're potentially going to be allowed to do for graduation. We also have one on remote learning. So we've gotten some great feedback on both of these surveys of ideas around graduation, and then around thought exchange of things that we're doing really well for remote learning, and then some things that we can improve upon in the future as well. So it's been great feedback. We've had a lot more participation than we typically do. So it's been a good tool, and we plan to continue to use that. So that is really it for me. I think we can move to district business. Oh, wait, I'll do that at the end. I do have another question as well, but we can do that at the end.
Okay. Well, then, I believe the first thing we have to do is we need a motion to accept this year's, the 2020-21 budget of $47,717,978.
So moved.
Linda,
Second.
Jason, Any other questions regarding the budget? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. I believe the next thing we have are the buses. Was it 5 buses, I believe, Corey? And
Yes.
one,
Yep,
um,
one Suburban, I believe.
one Suburban. Any questions regarding the buses?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, we have a Suburban or 2 or whatever, are we adding another?
We have one that's it's on its last legs. It's rusting out. So
Gotcha.
that would be a replacement for that
Okay.
vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah. So one Suburban and 5, these are all 60, or what are they, 70 passengers, Corey?
Yes.
Full-size buses,
Yep.
okay. At a cost not to exceed $780,000. I need a motion.
So moved.
Danny, and I didn't, was that Stacy, I believe?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions regarding this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. Okay, finally, well, not finally, we need to approve the property tax report card. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Kathy and Danny. Any questions regarding the report card? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed, that's carried. Okay, and finally, we have to approve the use of the repair reserve for the repairs at Appalachian Elementary School. 200, we're gonna use the entire amount, $214,921. I need a motion.
So moved.
Linda,
Second.
Kathy. Any final questions on the repair reserve? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried as well. Okay, so I guess now we're down to whether or not we have any more.
I do. So I have a question here, Mr. Civic, from Jerry Jones, and it says, do you need voter approval for reserve spending? And the
No,
answer-
not for the repair reserve, no.
Right.
Just a public hearing.
Yeah, the board approves the resolution through district business. And we're just
The
required.
board can establish it,
required
and the
to-
board can spend it, but we're required to have a public hearing on the repair reserve, that is.
Yes,
There's different requirements for different reserves.
yes.
That was the only one, Corey?
That's the only one I have that
Okay.
on the list here for the remainder.
Well, if you receive any other ones, obviously, Corey, you can respond to them. But I guess with that,
I may have one more question
oh, okay.
coming.
Probably should give it a couple minutes anyway.
Mike Barada comments, I have heard other schools in New York State are done in early June. Do we have a date yet? We have a potential date, but we are waiting for final confirmation from the state on that date, but it will be much earlier than what we had anticipated. So we'll be getting that information out as soon as we get that final guidance coming from the state education department. There's a little confusion with the governor and his emergency days that he has offered. So it will be much earlier than anticipated, and we will have that as soon as we can clarify.
And we ought to give it another couple minutes, Corey, see if any other questions come in. But you're not seeing any?
I am not seeing any more. Nope.
All right. All right, well then, all we have left is a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
Stacy and I think Danny.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's carried. Well, everyone, good night.